The afternoon sunlight poured through the tall windows of the Hawthorne family's grand dining room, illuminating a table dressed in white linen, crystal glasses, and carefully arranged flowers. Everything looked perfect for the family's annual anniversary luncheon. Yet beneath the polished surface, a quiet storm was waiting to explode. At the head of the table sat 82-year-old Evelyn Hawthorne, the family matriarch, watching every arrival with sharp, patient eyes. Then the doors opened, and a woman nobody expected walked in beside Evelyn's grandson, Adrian. She wore an elegant blue dress, carried herself with complete confidence, and walked straight toward the chair that had belonged to Adrian's wife, Marielle, for 11 years. Without hesitation, the woman pulled out Marielle's chair and sat down. The room went silent. Marielle stood several feet away, holding a small gift she had brought for Grandma Evelyn, her face suddenly pale. Before anyone could say a word, Evelyn slammed her palm against the table and shouted with a force that made every glass tremble. "Get up!" The woman froze, and every guest turned toward Grandma. If you believe kindness can create second chances and that people deserve to be treated with dignity, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner 2.0. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may need a reminder that doing the right thing still matters. Marielle had never been the loudest person in the Hawthorne family. She had married Adrian at 26, when neither of them had much money, and for years she had quietly built a life around him. She helped him through long nights when he was trying to establish his first company, encouraged him when investors rejected his ideas, and stood beside him when his father questioned whether he had the determination to succeed. Marielle never asked for public recognition. She simply believed that when two people promised to build a life together, they were supposed to carry the difficult moments together. As Adrian's company grew, so did the family's wealth. Their modest apartment became a beautiful home, and eventually Adrian became one of the most successful business owners in the city. But somewhere along the way, success changed him. He became distant, impatient, and increasingly concerned with appearances. Marielle noticed the change long before anyone else did. For months, Adrian had been spending time with Celine, a young woman who worked around several of his business associates. At first, Marielle convinced herself there was an innocent explanation. She did not want to become suspicious without proof. She remembered the man Adrian had once been and hoped he would eventually return to that version of himself. But rumors began spreading through social circles, and eventually Adrian stopped pretending. He told Marielle that he wanted a different life. He said their marriage had become predictable and that he deserved happiness. The words hurt deeply, but Marielle refused to turn the situation into a public battle. She moved into a smaller guest residence on the other side of town and focused on rebuilding her confidence. The family, however, knew more than Adrian realized. Evelyn had watched everything unfold from a distance. She remembered Marielle arriving at the Hawthorne home years earlier with a nervous smile and homemade dessert because she wanted to make a good impression. She remembered Marielle sitting beside her during hospital visits, reading books aloud when Evelyn's eyesight was weak. She remembered Marielle bringing soup when everyone else was too busy to notice that Evelyn had barely eaten. To Evelyn, Marielle was not simply Adrian's wife. She was family. That was why Evelyn had deliberately invited Marielle to the anniversary luncheon. She wanted to make something very clear before the family gathered around the table. Wealth could change circumstances, but it could never erase loyalty. Marielle arrived quietly, hoping to avoid attention. She had brought Evelyn a framed photograph of the entire family from a picnic several years earlier. In the picture, everyone was laughing, and Adrian still looked genuinely happy. Marielle had almost turned around at the doorway when she saw Celine walk in beside him. But Evelyn noticed her immediately and smiled warmly. That small smile gave Marielle enough courage to stay. Then Celine took her chair. It was not an accident. Everyone at the table knew that chair had been Marielle's place for more than a decade. It was beside Evelyn, close enough for the two women to speak privately during family meals. Celine sat there as though she had already inherited a position she had never earned. Adrian did nothing to stop her. That was when Evelyn shouted, "Get up!" Celine slowly rose, embarrassment replacing her confidence. Adrian looked at his grandmother with disbelief and tried to explain that Celine had simply chosen an empty seat. Evelyn stared at him without blinking. She told him that an empty chair was not the same as an unclaimed place. She explained that the chair represented years of love, patience, sacrifice, and family memories. Anyone could sit in a chair, but nobody could simply take another person's place. Marielle quietly asked Evelyn not to make the situation worse. She did not want anyone fighting because of her. But Evelyn shook her head. She told Marielle that she had spent too many years protecting everyone else's feelings while allowing her own to be ignored. Then Evelyn asked Adrian a question that made the entire room uncomfortable. She asked whether he remembered who had stayed beside him when his first company nearly collapsed. Adrian said he remembered. Evelyn asked whether he remembered who sold her expensive jewelry to help him cover an urgent business payment. Adrian lowered his eyes. He remembered that too. Marielle had never told the family about the jewelry. She had never used her sacrifice to demand gratitude. She had simply believed Adrian needed help at the time. Evelyn then asked whether Adrian remembered who visited his mother every weekend after her surgery while he was traveling for work. Again, Adrian said nothing. The room became painfully quiet. Celine looked toward Adrian, realizing for the first time that she had walked into a story whose history she did not understand. She had seen Adrian's success, confidence, and expensive lifestyle. She had not seen the years of struggle that came before it. Marielle finally placed the framed photograph on the table. She told Evelyn that she had brought it because she wanted her to have something that reminded her of happier days. Then she turned toward Adrian and said that she did not want revenge. She only wanted to leave the marriage with her dignity intact. Adrian suddenly realized how different that sounded from the accusations he had expected. He had prepared himself for anger, shouting, and humiliation. Instead, Marielle was offering closure. But Evelyn was not finished. She told Adrian that leaving a marriage was his decision, but disrespecting the person who had stood beside him was a choice he would have to live with. She reminded him that a person's character was not measured by how they treated someone while they needed them, but by how they treated that person after they no longer did. Those words finally broke through Adrian's pride. He looked at Marielle and remembered the early years. He remembered their tiny kitchen, the second-hand furniture, the cheap coffee they drank while planning their future. He remembered Marielle celebrating his first small business contract as though he had already become a billionaire. He remembered her handwritten notes hidden inside his briefcase before important meetings. He remembered how she had believed in him before the rest of the world did. And suddenly he understood what he had thrown away. Celine quietly apologized to Marielle. She admitted that she had misunderstood the situation and that she should never have taken that chair without understanding what it meant. Marielle accepted the apology without bitterness. The luncheon continued, but nothing felt the same. Adrian did not sit beside Celine. Instead, he spent most of the meal in silence, listening as his grandmother spoke about family, responsibility, and gratitude. After lunch, he approached Marielle privately and admitted that he had spent too much time chasing an exciting future while forgetting the person who had helped him build his present. Marielle listened. She did not immediately forgive him. She explained that forgiveness did not mean pretending nothing had happened. It meant refusing to let someone else's mistakes control the rest of her life. That afternoon, Marielle walked outside into the clear daylight. For the first time in months, she felt as though she could breathe freely. She had entered the house believing she had lost her place in the family. Instead, she discovered that her worth had never depended on a chair at a table. Months passed. Marielle began working with a community organization that helped women rebuild their lives after difficult family transitions. She used what she had learned from her own experience to encourage others to rediscover their confidence. She became happier, stronger, and more independent. Adrian changed too, though not overnight. He apologized to his family and accepted responsibility for his choices. His relationship with Celine ended peacefully, and he began attending counseling to understand why he had become so careless with the people who loved him. He did not expect Marielle to return. Instead, he learned to respect the distance she needed. Evelyn remained proud of Marielle. Whenever the family gathered, she kept the same chair beside her. But after Marielle's life changed, Evelyn sometimes left it empty, not because she was waiting for someone to reclaim it, but because she wanted everyone to remember what that chair had taught them. 1 year later, during another family luncheon, Marielle returned as a guest. She walked into the dining room wearing a simple cream-colored dress and carrying flowers for Evelyn. Adrian stood when he saw her, but he did not approach until she smiled first. Evelyn looked at the chair beside her and laughed softly. This time, nobody tried to take it. Marielle sat down beside her grandmother, and Evelyn gently squeezed her hand. The family continued talking, laughing, and sharing stories. The past had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled the room. Marielle finally understood something important. Sometimes losing your place in someone else's life is the beginning of finding your place in your own. And the lesson stayed with everyone who witnessed that unforgettable afternoon. Respect cannot be demanded by wealth, beauty, status, or power. It is earned through kindness, loyalty, and the way we treat people when nobody is watching. A chair may look like an ordinary piece of furniture, but sometimes it carries years of memories, sacrifice, and love. And when someone tries to take a place they have not earned, the strongest person in the room may simply be the one brave enough to stand up and say, "Get up." If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Kindness Corner 2.0 so more uplifting stories can reach people who need them. Before the ending, leave a comment saying, "Kindness always finds its way home." It may be just a few words, but your comment could remind someone today that their worth is never determined by the place someone else gives them. And remember, sometimes the greatest comeback is not getting someone back. Sometimes it is finding yourself again.